Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. For all of you that are joining us right now, we'll get going in a short while here, about a couple of seconds. So just give me a second. It's wonderful to see you all today joining us. Okay. So I would like to just let you know this exhibit is being recorded. We'll put this up on our site later on for people who cannot make it at this time to watch it at a future date. So just be aware of that. And with that, I would like to get us going. I really, again, want to thank you all for joining us. It's really exciting to share this time with you, and really, I want to just begin by telling you a little bit about myself and how this came about. So my name is Fanuel Muindi. I'm the founding member of the STEM Advocacy Institute that is hosting this gallery. And it's actually one of our brand new projects from the Institute. Our primary focus in the Institute is really exploring the connections between science and society. So we build tools, programming, and I encourage you to go to our website, stemadvocacy.org, to just explore the full range of our programming. And so this is really the New Society art virtual exhibit is really an attempt by us to use art as a vehicle between those two domains. And so with COVID-19, we've sort of gone on, taken advantage of the virtual opportunity with everyone being at home to then use that as time to engage people. And so we hosted this once during about 4 weeks ago, and that was a success in a way, like a test run. And we had 9 artists that showcased their work, and so there was interest to do it again. And so this is the second iteration of that, and we are continually improving. And so bear with us as we sort of sort out the technical challenges of doing this. And also just as we grow, and I really appreciate any feedback that you may have towards the end or afterwards as well, if you want to chat. The hope is that we continue to do this, okay? The hope is we continue to do this in future iterations. And so if you go to our site, and so let me just put this on full screen for you to see. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram at New Society Art, and also our website, New Society Art Space. So you can explore there. One page, and we do showcase all the work that will be showcased today will be put on the website, full descriptions and links to the individual artist website. So don't worry if you can't like write it down right now. Just go to our site later on, beginning Monday. All the pieces that will be showcased today will be available online for you to explore and venture into those respective artists' websites. And that's really the key for us, is to venture that gap. So I'm a scientist by training, neuroscientist. And I no longer practice science, if you will, but now I am sort of in this space where I explore, navigating, as I mentioned earlier, science and society. And so I'm a photographer in my free time. And so I find that's kind of where my passion is in using photography. And so this is where my artistic dimensions come to be. And so with that, I want to get going. And so the way it will work, each artist will have about 4 to 5 minutes to talk about their piece and about themselves, their piece, and anything else that we want to know. I will be the not moderator, but I will then sort of ping them if we're running over time. And then you guys, as the rest of the audience, can absolutely ask questions afterwards. If there's a burning question during when they're talking, you can absolutely do so as well. But then we'll move through each artist in that fashion. And in that way, we should technically be done in about an hour from now, okay? Unless the discussions are so rich, but I'll try to be really, to move us along, okay? So bear with me as we try to do that. And so just to proceed, I would love to welcome Suzanne Anker, and I'm really honored to have her join us. And so Suzanne, why don't you take us off, and I'll let you do the intros, okay? Thank you.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody out there. Suzanne Anker from School of Visual Arts, where I'm chair of the Fine Arts Department and director of the BioArt Laboratory, the first BioArt lab in an art school in America. And very interested in the intersection of art and biology. I've been working along these lines for a very long time, starting in the late 1980s. In fact, in 1994, I curated a show about art and genetics at the Plaza Gallery as part of Fordham. And it was called the Molecular Metaphor in Visual Arts. This image, as you see right now, Astroculture, Eternal Return, is a part of an exhibition called The Value of Food that was curated by Kirby Gukin and Robin Kahn in 2005, in which the Cathedral of St. John the Divine was handed over to the curators, who then created a show about food, and about 20 artists were in the show. I was awarded my own chapel. This cathedral is very large. It's a Gothic cathedral. And I decided to do a larger version of a piece that I had done in 2009 at Exit Art, which was in a show called Corpus Extremis. So this sort of question between bioart and what it is has been on my radar for a very long time. In fact, I wrote the definition of bioart for the Oxford Dictionary of Art. It's a contested term. No one really knows where it comes from, although some people say that they started it. And in terms of my background, I am a fine artist, and I work in a variety of mediums: photography, sculpture, digital sculpture, plants grown by LED lights, installation, and large-scale photography. This was a very curious piece in the cathedral because the cathedral is visited from people all over the world. And going into this chapel and seeing the fuchsia emanation, people did not believe that these plants were real. In fact, they were growing tomatoes, string beans, peas, and other foodstuffs. And it wasn't until you could take out your cell phone and shine a light on the vegetables themselves did you see that they were, in fact, green. The impetus behind this piece really is how agriculture is moving both indoors and into outer space due to climate change and the necessity to find other food sources. With colony collapse and the extinction of other pollinators, the food supply is in transition. So in this piece, you can grow your own vegetables in your dark apartment in New York City or wherever you live. It is all made from off-the-shelf materials, from the Container Store and ready-made LED panels, and it also is an ode to NASA, who has a project called Astroculture. When NASA sent up astronauts to the space station earlier on in 2009 and they grew cucumbers, they were not allowed to eat the cucumbers because of possible contaminations. But what they did find out was when you plant a seed in outer space, you get two sprouts as opposed to one sprout, as it is on Earth. If you boil water in outer space, you get one giant bubble instead of the little tiny bubbles. So botany under anti-gravitational conditions is something that we are just learning about. What else can I tell you about this piece? This piece has been shown internationally in Korea in the biennial in Daejeon, in which the whole museum was about bioart. And because there's live material in this piece, such as soil and seeds and plants, you cannot transport these live materials to another country unless you get a particular kind of passport for them. So I actually was able to get all of the material in Korea that I needed to create this piece. The structure of the piece was, of course, shipped there. Another venue for this was the Everson Museum. Another venue was BioArt Laboratory in Berlin. Another venue more recently was in abandoned rice silos in Houston, Texas. So this has really gotten around, and I think what is important to note here is fuchsia really is the new green. These are red and blue lights that simulate that part of the light wave for photosynthesis, and I think that people really need to come up with alternative ways to produce food. In between 2004 and 2006, if you want to hear more about what I have to say about art and biology, I did 20 episodes of a radio broadcast on PS1 and MoMA. It is now archived on the Clock Tower. It's called the BioBlurb Show. And ironically, I did a piece about the virus. I would invite different guests to come on the show and talk about a particular subject. So I invite you all to visit that program to show really how bioart has now become something under these circumstances which is gaining more currency.
That's great, Suzanne. So if you have questions, you can drop them in the group chat. And Suzanne, I have a very fast one. You mentioned bioart still doesn't have you say a definition, or people still fighting as to what it means?
It has a definition, but it is a contested subject. So depending on who is telling you what it is, it's a different story. I like to look at it as a tripart system. One which includes wetware of things that are produced in the lab or with living materials or formerly living materials. I also like to have a section of that devoted to computer technology, new imaging technologies, and rapid prototype, as well as PCR, because without all of those tools, we would not be where we are. The tools collapse into the wetware, and the wetware is then collapsed into aesthetics, or the ways in which the products of science become examples of the fears and hopes of the society. So there's a tripart system here between society, science, and the visual arts.
Fantastic, and I really appreciate just making those connections. And again, as I mentioned earlier, at SAI, that's what we really focus a lot about. And the gallery, and what I'm hoping, and I failed to explain at the beginning, is exploring that connection through art, you know, and I think there are wonderful avenues there. And today we're sort of taking a small journey, right, as we go, and later on you'll see this, looking at the supermassive to the really tiny, tiny, tiny. And I feel like, Suzanne, you're right in the space where, you know, and I would love to actually go and see this and just engage with it. And that's the component that we can't do here, but I think if it's anything is to entice us, if we're in the neighborhood, to try to explore that. Suzanne, thank you so much for that intro. So to keep moving along, next up, I would love to welcome Erica Nazzaro. Erica, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Erica Nazzaro, and as you can see, I have an Instagram handle, and I'd love to be contacted through Instagram or my website, which is listed there. My piece of artwork is From the Depths, and it's all about how lotus and lily pads have to grow from muck for them to expand into beauty. And this is actually sort of a one of many pieces that I've been doing lately, very much influenced by the pandemic that's going on, feeling like through the mud and through the difficulty and through the chaos and the uncertainty and the unknowing comes something beautiful. And we just don't know what that beautiful thing will be yet. But it's been helping me a lot to be creative and to express myself through art during this time. I'm a graduate of the School of the Museum of Fine Arts. I graduated in 1984, and I've been doing art my whole life. I actually have 2 shows going on currently. One is at the Menino Art Center in Hyde Park, part of Boston, Massachusetts, and that is the body landscape, so that it's all images of bodies or landscape or the merging of the two. And I have 1 piece in that show, and I have 3 pieces in another show hosted by the Coffee Shop Artists, and that's virtual right now. I'll be glad to get that link to Fanuel so that he can pass that on if people are interested.
Will do.
So, any questions?
Yeah, so can you walk us a little bit about the like, how did this piece come about? You know,
Well, I spend a lot of time boating, on being in a canoe and swimming, and this is from a pond that I'm very, very close to. It's called Ponkapog Pond, and it's in the Blue Hills in Massachusetts. And so I have many photos of the lily pads and the flowers that grow from the lily pads. And my image is from a photo I took while I was boating. So I do paint when I'm going out on the boat as well. This is actually done from a photograph. But I do almost all of my artwork outside. Even if it's cold out, I find a way to paint outside, plein air, or outside to do this, which is pastel. I've been working in pastel for the last year, and primarily only pastel, which is very challenging for me. I really prefer to be a painter, watercolor painter, but so I think this painting shows some of my struggle, but I have many of them on my Instagram posts. So if you go to Instagram, you'll see a whole series of pieces similar to this, different and some more successful than others. But it's very much about the transparency of the water and seeing down into the depths and seeing that, so these flowers that grow on the lily pad, some call them lotuses, they only come after many, many years of coming from the mud. It takes a long time for them to appear. And so that's the whole point of my artwork, is that it comes from the depths and comes from the muck and the mud. And so that's it.
Sandy, this is
Beautiful.
Louise. I'm just an observer today, but I can see the movement of the water and the depth, so it's lovely.
Thank you.
That's so cool. You can actually didn't notice that the movement of the water. That's really really cool. So you mentioned you go out actually and sometimes paint on your boat,
Yes,
right?
I do. Yeah, in the canoe. Yeah.
In the canoe even. So wow, how does that work?
I never stand up. I just stay seated and I move everything around where I'm sitting. And I take lots of pictures and I paint. And I've kind of figured out how it works best for me. I usually go alone when I do it.
Oh, and alone as well. Wow. The challenges, you got all components in there. Quick question from Niba. She said, what medium is this?
Pastel,
Pastel. Yeah, sorry, Joni.
soft, chalk pastel, very, very soft.
Oil pastel?
No, soft. It's very messy, poisonous, very chalky. Yes, chalk pastel, soft, super soft, falling apart pastel.
Fantastic. Any additional questions? This is great.
Don't touch it.
That's why I put the band.
Right, don't touch it.
Don't touch it. That's right. That's right. Erica, thank you so much for that. And
Thank you for inviting me.
yeah.
Beautiful, Erica. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so right along here, really also we're gonna welcome next up is Shaun Reynolds. And I want to just say a quick thing here. Shaun is coming all the way from the UK. And so I really want to say special thanks to him because God knows what time it is there, taking time to present his work. Shaun, take it away. Shaun, are you with us?
Sorry, yeah, that's better. Yeah, unmute. Hi, yeah, Shaun Reynolds. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, I come from the UK, a small place in Norfolk near Bungay, and I've been into like photography for well, pretty much most of my life. But for the last 10 or 11 years, I kind of accidentally got into the night sky side of it, and I quickly sort of fell in love with it. The passion of capturing what's up there in the night sky. As you can, my website will be on there and the Twitter stuff's on there. So all my pictures are on there. And this is an example of what's taken years really to get to. But what I love about what I do with this is that it's the art of science. And although I've come into it from a kind of a photographic, artistic kind of way, I've fallen into the scientific merits of the picture. And you spend a lot of time with it. Like this particular image, a jellyfish nebula, took me 30 hours of exposure time. So it's built up over many nights, even months. In the UK, the weather is not very favourable for clear skies often. So you have to pick times. It could be 2 in the morning or 10 at night. And in doing so, you have a lot of time with your subject to get to know it. So that's where the cosmology and the science adds to the picture. More knowledge gives you a better insight. And this particular one is actually what's called a supernova. And there's thought to be 2 stars that have blown and gone supernova way back thousands of years ago. And they're expanding into space, creating what looks like a kind of a jellyfish. And there's several things like this that are up there in space, and they're quite large objects. The misconception is a lot of people say you must have a really powerful telescope. That's not the case. I mean, this is about 4 full moons across, if you could actually visualize that. But it's very, very faint. And the thing I love about doing this is to bring out the invisible, but it also gives you a blank canvas to process that image from what is essentially a black canvas, and you stretch and colorize with certain filters that the eye can't see to bring out your own interpretation of it. No one's alike, every 2 people are different. And that is my love of this hobby, which it's essentially a hobby for me. I'm sort of semi-professional. I start cameras and pictures online and what have you. And I'll just give you, if I can, another example of another picture, if I can share my screen. Just pop down there. And this is one that I literally finished last night. And this one is something like 33 hours it took to capture this amazing object. And that's called the Rosette Nebula. And again, this is a massive area. star birth. There's star clusters in there that are born from these clouds, these surrounding clouds. And also, the thing I love about this is interpreting my version of it, the colours and the depth, and how you can make it look like a tunnel and sharpen areas and blunt, make areas softer to show it in 3 dimensions if that's possible. So basically, I've got my little setup at home, as in I've got a little observatory just outside here, and this little untidy place here is actually my garage that I converted to be my control room to capture these images overnight. And what's lovely is I actually sit here all hours of the night up until 5 a.m. when we get the very darkest nights, sometimes 12 hours, to capture these amazing images. And as I say, you can't do it all in one go. Technically, it's quite difficult. You have to stack them and align and overlay these images. So in particular, this one is 150 separate images overlaid and stacked into one. So basically, in a nutshell, these are the kind of things that I love doing. And to me, it is the art of science that I love.
This is Shaun. Can you leave this photo up? I have a bazillion questions. I think everyone has a million questions for you.
So beautiful, Shaun. Wow, man.
Thank you very much.
So quickly read JennyMae is going back to say she loves this. You kind of mentioned briefly about your, you said your gallery, your equipment. Can you talk more about your equipment? What are you using?
Yeah, sure. A lot of people think I've got this fantastic kit, which I'm proud. Yes, I mean, the kit is quite, is reasonably good. I've got a Williams Optics refractor telescope, which is a 4-inch telescope. Essentially, nothing out of this world, if I can use that phrase, with a dedicated camera, which is a CCD, a charge coupled device camera, which is designed to go in the back of the telescope. And it's a black and white camera to utilize every single pixel, so you don't waste anything. But you have to use filters to build up these colors, as in red, green, and blue. So you do it 3 times as long to actually get much more signal involved in this kind of thing. The camera's cooled to create a better, smoother signal, not so much electronic noise. And that's the way you build up your colors. And you can interpret them in all sorts of ways. There is a certain way of doing these. This is called the Hubble palette, devised by Hubble. And that's using a certain 3 filters and put them in separate colors in their respective red, green, and blue. And depending on how you combine them, is how the color you'll get out of it. And there's ultimate ways of doing it. So I love that.
Wow. This is just fantastic. A lot of comments here. I'm just going to get to one more question here. I know a lot of people are interested in this, so fantastic work. How do you know where to point?
How do I know where to point? Well, we're very, very lucky because of the Hubble and what's gone before us. We've got some amazing software, free software as well, I might add. One's called stellarium.org, and it is essentially a planetarium. And you can pick your place in the world and your time in the world and get an exact view of the night sky as it progresses through the night. So you pick your objects from their locations, okay? You have to time it right. So I know this object particularly is around October till January time, when it's at optimum height in the sky for me to get. And that's all down to the planetariums and the fact that the Hubble has been taking these wonderful images years ago to point us in the right position and give us the coordinates to go there. So yeah, some objects, there's one object I did that was so faint, I spent, I think, nearly an hour to see if I was in the right place. And you couldn't, all I could tell was there was a lack of stars in the particular area. So I knew by that there was a dark nebula in there. And that took something like 20 hours to actually bring it out, which I love. That is my passion. Yeah.
And Shaun, last question. What inspires you to just do these? What is it? What happens when you're in there, you've seen these photos for the first time? Just tell us a moment.
I literally spend so long with each object. I see the initial, what they call sub, the first frame. They're 15-minute long exposures. There's 150 of them. You can see some detail, some black and white faint detail in there. And you kind of, you get excited. I do, I'm a nerd. But I mean, I love to see that image come through. And I sit there and just gather data night after night. And occasionally I'll go out there and just look up with the binoculars while I'm gathering the data and look where this object is, even though I can't see it. And then when you spend all your hours getting to know your object and your subject and you get it together and you stack them and you get what's called your master frames, that's when the excitement really starts, because you've got all this time that you've spent and you've got complete creativity of it to build it up into this image. And that is beautiful thing to do. You know.
Amazing. Shaun, thank you so much. I'm inspired.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's wonderful. And hopefully you stick around because I'm sure people want to
Sure.
break your
Yeah,
brain.
well done. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so if you can end your screen sharing, I'm happy to introduce our next presenter, JennyMae. Are you with us? Let's see.
Hello.
May, hey.
Hi everyone.
Fantastic. Everyone, this is JennyMae. JennyMae, you can start talking. I'll put up the slide.
Okay.
Work.
Awesome. Well, it's great to see everyone here. I almost want to be like, I'll just go back to Shaun because I'm so curious about the work that he does, and I'm super inspired to see everyone's work here. So a little about me. I'm a writer and a musician and a multidisciplinary artist. So I sort of have my fingers in everything. I play piano and, lately I've been doing more installation and large scale projection work. Recently I'm working with Lumen Arts, and they're doing a really great little sort of series called Light Up the Night, where they're just kind of doing guerrilla projections now at this time, this COVID time, to sort of give people a little bit of hope. We did a remix of, the Emily Dickinson poem, Hope is a Thing with Feathers. I had some fabulous poets and speakers read the poem, and then I mixed it with music, and just to kind of, bring up spirits and to connect with people, in a way that, we can't physically connect now. So, how I sort of got into the work that I'm doing, I actually started out as a writer. Well, actually, after a long sort of route, I ended up in an MFA program at Emerson College in Creative Nonfiction. And while I was there, they sort of let me into a projection art class. And from there, it just sort of went crazy. I sort of fell in love with being, immersed in things. I took an installation art course, and I went to Ireland for a bit, and I did an installation there at the Byrne College of Art. And it was just an amazing thing to be surrounded by a piece. And it really kind of got me thinking about the way that we are interacting with space, the way that, we perceive the world around us, and how, you can kind of manipulate, your surroundings to create effect and to sort of let people hold thoughts and ideas as object. So this piece, The American Dream and Solution, this is a mock-up of something that I had been working on, which is the Dreamland project. And it's a larger sort of multi-year immersive multisensory installation that I had applied for a grant for. So we'll see how that goes. But essentially the Dreamland project is a storytelling vehicle. I consider it like kind of like a gateway to empathy. Like, how can we take a small story, a small like hope, a small desire, and particularly stories from, underrepresented people, and really surround somebody with it, to place somebody within the dream. Can you smell it? Can you feel it? Can you touch it? To like expand on the moment. I really believe in like expanding on those kind of little things that kind of might go by. It's a number of pieces, but the American Dream is Illusion is basically the last piece. And it's a room called the Flag Room, basically, where these inverse images of American flags are sort of plastered and everywhere and kind of glowing. And what this does, and I don't know if anyone's familiar with this optical illusion, is that if you take some time and you stare at the flag for 20 seconds, a minute, your receptors in your retina will run out of photopigment, and then you'll be left with an after image. So if you're interested, you can go to my website, thedreamlandproject.org, and there's like a video, and the very end is sort of a digital version of that experience. But after you're in this room, the following room is a completely white, empty room. And the intent is when you go into that space, you'll see these after images sort of floating in you. So the art is in your mind, and hopefully you'll see other people around you. And I want that to sort of be, I don't want to say like a moment of like, it's not a moment of reckoning. It's just a moment of sort of realizing or holding as object, you know, kind of the idea of the American dream, whether or not people share the same thing, whether it's ours, you know. It's an opportunity to kind of see your own perspective and recognize like the uniqueness of individuals' perspectives in, especially with something as huge and symbolic as the American flag and contentious at the moment. So let me see, like what else? So, and I had picked this American flag image because for a number of different reasons. First of all, it was like my way to sort of make peace with like the red, white, and blue American flag, which, you know, particularly for persons of color and immigrants, it's sort of become a warning sign. It's become a divisive kind of thing where, you know, they say you don't belong or you're not American. And, you know, and me and some other people who have experienced harassment or experienced racism, you know, under the, you know, the cover of the American flag or people flouting it, you know, it's not, it makes it hard for us to assert Americanness and to assert, you know, our sense of community in the places where we live when things are being divided like this. And that's kind of where I blew that idea up with. So, but does anyone have any questions or anything like that, you know?
That's fantastic, JennyMae. And I just want to go up,
Beautiful.
if you go to
Thank
our
you.
site, JennyMae and I did have a much longer conversation about the Dreamland project. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to our site as well, because I think there's so much to unpack in there that is wonderful.
Thank you, Fanuel.
So, Darren, did you have a question?
I just had I mean, all of these artists so far have been so beautiful, but particularly the theme that JennyMae is presenting is going to be followed through at the end with my piece. So I'll just plant a flag for it right now.
I love it. I love it. Awesome.
Hey, I do want to ask, you know, you talk about people walking into this room, right? They're having this experience, they odor bleach their receptors, right? And they go to this white room and they experience this together with somebody else, right? It's like a group of them experiencing it together, right? And from your end, what do you hope happens in that room as they suddenly are able to see this image, right? What is happening there from your perspective, at least?
From my perspective, well, you know, and I said this when we talked, like, I love what the optical illusion is because it's fun, you know, and it's almost a game. I mean, it's something that we engage with when we're young and when we're children, you know, to sort of have fun and play with our sense of perception. And so I think, you know, kind of doing this makes it like a fun experience in a way. And because it's fun and because it's like light and just sort of, you know, something that you don't necessarily experience on a day-to-day basis, like that, I think, first of all, might open up people a little bit more to kind of other people and other people's kind of notions, you know, like first it's, you know, like, oh, are you seeing the same thing? Are you seeing the same thing? You know, like that could be like a fun kind of conversation, you know, and then maybe allow them to kind of think about it. Like if they see a person who looks like them or doesn't look like them and they're seeing the same thing, like, you know, like what questions are they asking themselves, you know? Like I think that's really important. I think it's like important. I don't want to control like what people are, whatever, you know, like their reaction to, but I hope that it stimulates questions and I hope that it stimulates connection with other people, you know?
That's very, and as Moitri said, very inspiring indeed.
Thanks, Moitri.
And again, please go to our site and look at the, because and at dreamlandproject.org, JennyMae, right?
Yes. And it's a collaborative thing. So if anyone's interested, you know, reach out to me. Photographers, writers, you have stories in mind. So yeah.
Lovely idea.
Awesome.
And so hopefully you guys are still with us on this journey. We are exploring many different facets of this connection between science and society using art. And with JennyMae using the illusionary power you know, and tapping into that. How can we engage the social justice part of this, right? In components. And so keep that in mind, right? These are vehicles at our disposal, right? These images are artwork at this interface to engage the broader society about all important topics. And so really then, I'm excited to welcome the next presenter, Caitlin, who will take us into really the small perspective, shall we say, and reminding me of my own training as a neuroscientist. So I'm super excited to just hear your process and learn a little bit more about you. Caitlin.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. So I am actually more of an accidental artist. I am a neuroscientist by training. I finished my PhD at MIT, where I studied the brain systems that are involved in motivation, so why we do the things that we do. And I was particularly interested in how dopamine, this neurotransmitter, neurochemical in the brain, modulates neural systems that make us approach things that we like and avoid things that we don't like. So approach rewards and avoid punishment. So I set out on a search to identify these kind of opposing neural pathways and the effect of dopamine. And that was my PhD experiment. But during this process, I realized, you know, as I was labeling neurons and, you know, entering a dark room and looking at them under a microscope, that I was also making these beautiful images of the brain. And so what you see here in Lock and Key is neurons in the prefrontal cortex, so all the way right here, up here in a mouse brain. Again, I was searching for these neural pathways. And so in this brain, I injected dye into 2 different brain regions, and then it was retrogradely transported up to the prefrontal cortex, and it labeled these populations in what you see as pink, and then also in blue. And then I was looking to see, again, I wanted to know how dopamine interacted with these systems. And so I labeled 2 different types of dopamine receptors to see if they overlap. Do these pathways actually express dopamine receptors? You can see that labeled D1 receptors are in red and D2 receptors are in green. And what you can see is that they largely actually don't overlap. So this essentially is quite a big failed experiment. And how the artist part comes into this is I was like, these are beautiful, and neuroscientists around the world are creating these really beautiful images, even if they're complete screw-ups and not what we're looking for. And I didn't think that they should be used or thrown in the trash. So I founded a neuroscience and art initiative called Interstellate, and collected not only my images, but images from scientists all over the world. And we produced, as a neuroscience community, 2 books. Each page has an image that was contributed by neuroscientists, and it's used to explain a neuroscientific concept. So if you Google Interstellate and look at volumes 1 and 2, you can find them online. And this is just one of those images. And I liked this one because I thought it really played in well into the invisible connections in me on my search to find these connections in the brain. So the next image is also very similar. This is another coronal section of a mouse brain. Right here, I was looking, what you can do is you can keep a brain slice alive by perfusing it with fluids and oxygen. And what I was hoping to do in brain slices was to patch on with an electrical pipette and record from that, and then throw on dopamine onto the slice to see how it actually changes the activity of these cells. And so that's what I was trying to do in this experiment. But as I was lowering my pipette into the slice, and it had a little bit of dye, so after the experiment, I can see the dye fills the cell once I perforate it. And you can kind of see in in the middle, you could see a really bright white dot, and that was a cell that I was recording from. But what I didn't realize until after my experiment was that I had nicked a blood vessel. in this brain slice, and the dye went through the entire system. And so this was also, you know, a pretty failed experiment. Like, I can't use this data, but, you know, in these brain slices, you don't, you know, you don't see the blood vessels. They're impossible to see. So I just happened to nick on it. And I also thought this fit well with the current theme that, you know, this kind of failed experiment revealed these really delicate pathways in the brain, which were its vasculature system. So those are right, and these were all done, taken with confocal microscopy, and many of them were fluorescently labeled with various dyes.
Wow. I think
Super impressive, my goodness.
Thank you.
failure is beautiful, right? Maybe say that, failure is beautiful. Darren, do you have a question?
I think Fanuel, you and I are having similar reactions. I was watching your face when she was talking about it being a failure, and now we're all artists. There's no failures here.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that at all. And I think actually, you know, the failures are actually very important components of the scientific process. You know, we learn from them, we learn how to optimize our protocols and make adjustments. And so I actually think they're, you know, super important for the scientific process as well. And, right. You know, I thought that we could celebrate that collectively as a community by saving these images and actually celebrating them together.
Sure. I'm sure I speak for many of us. You know, some of my best pieces have been failures or just accidents, and you look at it afterwards saying, "Wow, that's fantastic." I'm sure everyone experiences that.
Absolutely. And I think as scientists, like, we're kind of trained and ingrained to like take failures, you know, really harshly. And I think that this is a really great way of kind of overcoming that within the community and beyond. So I hope that's one thing that people take away from this project.
That's wonderful. So do you showcase them? Are they only online? You say you have books, but do you go in schools and like do demos?
I haven't yet. That's a long-term goal. We did develop these two 100-page each books. They are available online, and I also fundraised close to $15,000 to print them out, and then I just gave them away for free. Some to schools, mostly to the people who submitted their images. I shipped books, you know, to Australia and the UK and all over the place. But just I wanted people to have them. A long-term goal for me is to make this into a proper a book, but it just hasn't quite materialized yet. But I would certainly be open to that.
So we should totally chat because I'm very, you know, thinking about what JennyMae is doing, right? If you think of an installation, kind of a piece where people can experience these connections, the images, right? Anyway, there's lots of ways you can go with this and engaging the broader community. So it's just amazing. And I think coming from a scientist as well, we take, especially the imaging, you take so many images, and gosh, as you know, they're probably just collecting digital dust and will never see the light of day. So I think this is great that you're doing this.
Quick question. I love this. This is awesome. And I could see your wheels turning, Fanuel. And I was also thinking kind of larger scale. How big can you make these images? I mean, what's the resolution on them? Could they fill a wall or?
Yeah, let's see. She may have
Is she frozen?
She may have frozen. But I can briefly tell you, she mentioned that these are confocal images, so pretty high resolution. So you could imagine blowing them up pretty substantially. And so yeah, I think it's if she can jump on, I don't know, I'm not sure what happened there, but.
It's a treasure trove of failure, which could certainly become a beautiful, beautiful three-dimensional thing.
An image there. Stop this.
This is Dana Simmons. This is just, you know, whatever it is, 8.5 by 11.
Yeah.
Just to give you an idea.
Yeah.
I don't. Fantastic.
It's hard for me to show the. It gives you an idea.
What book is that?
This is one of two of her. This
is sweet.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to meet her and get them.
It's fantastic.
I have to look for a copy.
Okay.
Sorry guys, I dropped off for a second. I'm back. I think I'm having internet connectivity issues.
So just to quickly summarize, I was saying earlier that there's tons of these images that scientists have, and I think you have a great initiative trying to extract them and use them constructively out there. JennyMae was asking about how large these images, you can make them, what's the resolution? I think maybe you can add on, I said they're confocal, so it's pretty high res, but can you add anything else on top of that? Oh no, did we lose her again? Oh no.
Oh no.
Okay, so we'll try to connect with her. But Joni, you're up next, and so perfect transition to next. On to you, all yours.
Okay, hi, I'm Joni. I'm not a scientist. I don't have any formal art training. I feel a little bit in left field here. The company I'm in today is pretty esteemed. Fanuel asked me to actually submit a different piece, which was funny because the other piece, there was a big mistake in it that I worked to feature, and it's actually one of my most interesting pieces, but because the theme was invisible connections, this piece that I'm basically finishing up now, I started it 2 years ago, I thought was much more relevant. Can you flip to the image? There we go. So I actually started this, I was inspired by, at the very end of yoga practice one day, I was laying there breathing on the floor with everybody else, and I felt like I was in a pod of whales. And I was just really appreciating how we were all breathing together, but at our own pace. And so I started stitching round circles to represent bubbles. And then the piece grew. I've been working on it off and on over 2 years. So it sort of got bubbles all over the place. And then I decided it needed to have a meteor shower. And because it's yoga, there's coolness and hotness. And so we've got everything from the deep seas to outer space. And ultimately, though, it's about how everything is connected to everything else. That's about it. And I'm actually really feeling that loss right now, because we can't be in community in the way that we're used to. We can't be in yoga and breathing with people. I can't go dancing. I can't go to my singing group and do these things with people. So
The connections, right?
This piece is all about being able to do those things. It's all about how we are all connected.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Joni. And I think we're all in this theme panel, including yourself as well. Questions, thoughts, comments, reactions? I will try not to speak too much.
Hi, I have a question, Joni. So when you lift up each layer, is there stitching underneath that the circle continues to a certain point?
Oh, so the panel in the middle is all hand stitched. The strips are machine pieced, but then I hand stitched
over.
Right. So the lighter circles, which are very hard to see in this picture, do not go through to the back because I didn't have a back panel on when I started it, but the darker ones do go through. Does that make sense?
Right.
Does that answer your question?
It's incredibly creative. I love it very much.
Thank you. Oh, what fabrics and materials did I use? Well, I'm not picky. So I'm a quilter sort of by training. I started quilting in 2001, and I got into the art side of quilting in 2012. And so if something isn't the right color, I'll just paint it. In this case, I actually hand dyed the silk, and then there's a commercial green to blue fabric, that's the background, and then there's I used cheesecloth that I painted over top of the commercial fabric, and then there's pigment, and I made this stuff called silk fusion. It's just silk fibers and glue, basically. So that's the fire, and I'm putting beads on there, little star beads, which are very hard to see in this picture. The other thing I wanted to say about this is it's kind of hard to see, and it's supposed to be that way, but the background that's made with the commercial fabrics, I made as one quilt for the smaller piece, and I thought, nah, this is too pretty. I need to make it ugly. So I took a steak knife and I cut it into strips, and then I sewed it back together with a zigzag stitch. So it's kind of got scars, and that's partly because of, you know, like the Leonard Cohen thing. The cracks are how the light gets in. That, you know, we all have scars and damage, but that doesn't make us not beautiful.
Yeah, Joni, thank you so much for that. Just to keep things moving a little bit as well, Sandy, passing on the floor to you. I think it's a nice transition to you as well. Take it away.
Yes. Hi, everybody. It's really an honor to be here with such great artists, and it's just really good. So my name is Sandy Felder, and I'm a retired union leader who takes pictures. And I always tended to take pictures, but certainly after I've got the time now to do that. So I morphed myself into a photographer. And I take pictures of things that bring me joy. Anything I see, if I'm walking somewhere, or if I'm on a trip, if it makes me feel good, I take a picture of it. And with that, I've created I've moved into something called Joyful Moments. And this is certainly a joyful moment. When I took this photo, I was in Stockholm, and I was walking around the city, and I happened to sort of look down one street, and here were these people having a celebration. And I was really thinking about the theme of this show being invisible connections, and I really gave me ponder about it, like what does that mean, you know, and how is that expressed? And I think that this celebration to me really does speak to the question of invisible connections, because we know that they know each other. I'm curious about what these people are doing. I see them there. Who are they? How are they related to each other? What are they celebrating? So to me, it was just sort of like a perfect kind of thing to talk about an invisible connection. So I snapped the photograph, and here we are. So that's
here we are.
I also just want to say one thing as well, beyond this particular photograph, but I have a Facebook page called Joyful Moments, and every day a photo comes out on my Joyful Moments page. If you go to my website, you can actually access my Facebook and Instagram. My Instagram page is more of a gallery, and the Facebook is a joyful moment every day. I hope to send people off to work or whatever they're doing. I hope to send them off with something pleasant for the day. And particularly now, we need many more joyful moments. The other thing I would just say, if I could give a pitch to my gallery, I joined with some artists last year, and we opened a art gallery and gift shop in Malden. And so, and actually just last week, we, for the first time, we went online to sell, because obviously we had to close our gallery, which was heartbreaking because we had only been up for 5 months, and then we had to close the doors. So we are also online, and it's called the Gallery at 57. So again, appreciate people looking at that. And so I know people have questions. I think that to me, it also speaks a lot of Europe, you tend not to see something like this in our towns here. The old buildings, the colorful flags. Anyway, so that's pretty much it in terms of the photo. It just, to me, was an example of a joyful moment, and just, I'm curious about these people. I don't know if you are, but why doesn't she have her hat on?
Let me ask this. So when you took the photo, were you thinking of those questions, or was it after the fact?
No, actually, it was those questions, because I sort of looked down the street and it's like, oh my God, isn't this cool? Only here could this happen. And I wondered what they were celebrating. And it's kind of funny also, because when I stopped to take the photo, I noticed this happens sometimes, but other people stopped, saying, what is she taking a picture of? So we ended up creating this sort of bunch of us in the end, photographing these people down the street, but none of us went down to ask them. I guess I could have gone down and say, who are you? What are you celebrating? But I kind of like the mystery of it as well.
I agree. I like it too. Thank you so much for that. Just to get to the end, and that way we can have an even broader discussion just in general. I'd like to introduce next Maria Servellon. And so Maria actually has a video, and so we're going to try and see if this would work. Maria, are you with me?
Yes. Hi. Thank you, Fanuel, for having me here. So I'm Maria Servellon, and I'm a filmmaker, multimedia artist from Boston. So the piece that I have today is called Between You and I and Them, which is a video projection that I created last year. And this year around, I was able to create a sound like music mix to it. The piece is an experimental contemplation of the gradient between inner chaos and outer peace. It's a piece that I've created during tough times, and it worked for me last year. And I felt like using this piece to have other people feel good this time around, and it worked for them. So I am an alumna from UMass Boston in studio art, Emerson College for film and media art, and now I work as a lecturer at Northeastern University for the graduate digital media program. So I do filmmaking and multimedia work equally. There's none that neither or that I have a preference to. And a lot of my work deals with what I deem as autobiographical remixing, to be able to take gender, heritage, culture, sexuality, cultural history, politics, religion, and even trauma and healing, to be able to destroy or remix predetermined identities that we are born with to create an original new identity that you have say in. And I mix things in with pop culture and glitch art, VJ and DJ culture, and to formulate this, what I deem as a personal renaissance. And so, like most people in this panel, a lot of the work I do comes from errors, glitches, system standbys. And to be able to create a new piece of work. And I feel like that resonates a lot with ourselves, and being able to create something new whenever something doesn't feel right or goes wrong. So to be able to use my work as like healing, and even for me to experiment and do different things. So right now I will show you all 1 minute of Between You and I and Them, which will be posted on the website. It's a 15-minute piece, and so I've picked 5 minutes of it to be able to show. So let's see if this thing works. Okay.
Okay, you might want to unmute yourself, Maria.
So that's 1 minute of that piece.
Great. Thank you so much for. So, quick question,
Okay.
Brian. Did you write this music?
No. So whenever I create the imagery, I always listen to like playlists and soundtracks, and I put the imagery to the music, but I've never done anything with music. I've never included it. This time around, the piece has already been created, and so I added new music. And so during this quarantine season, I've taught myself DJing. So I've distorted all of the songs that appear on there. I've created new like elements to it. And so putting a spin to it that this time, interestingly enough, I'm matching to the visuals than my usual reverse.
And like Brian, I love the abstraction. Like, I think it causes you to just stop and think and just see the connections, what are they, where are they? So very, very cool.
Thank you.
Hopefully, as well.
So,
Do you have a question?
oh yeah, first of all, so cool. I love the way that you glitched it out and kind of warped the 8-bit and everything. And I don't know, it was awesome. And also, you're going to be on the intergenerational healing panel later today?
Yes.
Okay, I saw your name. Awesome. And were you like Paul Toronto's TA?
I was, yeah. I was.
Okay, so we were in the same thing. I don't know if you remember me. This is a total coincidence.
I love the connections,
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Likewise.
So thank you so much, Maria. Up next and last on our list today is Darren. And I just want to do a quick plug in here. I met with Darren a couple of weeks ago, just virtually online, and we've been talking. And when this opportunity came up, and I just knew I had to have him come and share his work. And so Darren, really looking forward to hearing more and about your piece. Take it away.
Excellent, Fanuel. Thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
Wonderfully, yes.
Excellent. So, yeah, this was, I incorporated this project in with my normal weekly newsletter. I send out a Friday photo art, and I'm currently in the middle of a project that's called Heroes of COVID-19. And so I live in New York, and the second that we started having to wait in line to get into Trader Joe's, I decided that, all right, this is time to start this collection in earnest. And I've been out there every day collecting images like you see here. Let's see. I don't think you've shown the image yet. There it is. Okay. So Devontae and Jean outside of Mount Sinai Hospital, just off the Upper East Side, Central Park. These are the faces that I want to show people. I want to show people the diversity of characters that are keeping us together, that are basically keeping society from imploding. And I want to introduce a quote from Spencer Wells, a well-known geneticist out of Stanford and National Geographic, etc., that I included in on my Friday photo art. There's two quotes from him in order. The first one: every drop of human blood contains a history book written in the language of our genes. I felt that was a nice, appropriate tie-in to this image. And then furthermore, he goes on to say, in a totally different piece of work, he says, you and I, in fact, everyone all over the world, we're all literally African under the skin, brothers and sisters separated by a mere 2,000 generations. Old-fashioned concepts of race are not only socially divisive, but scientifically wrong. And it's just, to tie in with what JennyMae was talking about earlier, I just feel that, the untold story here is that these two guys are partners, paramedic partners, and they're also real-life brothers-in-law. And so it's the invisible connection is just between these guys, never mind the rest of us. And so I felt like it was just, Fanuel asked for something at the right time, because this is what I was getting ready to deliver-ish. And so I was able to use the motivation to perhaps yeah, I guess I can't take credit for it. It was thanks to this project coming forward. It definitely inspired this week's photo art, and so I'm very happy to be a part of this group of people, and quite honored to be part of this early offering that you're doing, Fanuel. So kudos to you for organizing everybody together and this eclectic group of artists. I really appreciate it. I think we all do.
Thank you so much, Darren. I want a quick question, the same question I asked Sandy. What were you doing just before capturing this photo? Did you see it in your head, or just walk us through that?
I mean, this photo was at the end of probably 15 miles of walking. And so I was all up and down the Upper West Side in Harlem and the upper, Spanish Harlem. And I came back down through the hospital area. And it was right as they were starting to set up the tents in Central Park, just outside the hospital in that meadow. And so I was out just hustling and getting images, and there was lines and lines of ambulances up and down this street. And these two guys just looked so innocent and young, and I asked them, can I take a picture? And they were all, they spiffed up, and and so it was, I was hustling, and from here I moved on, and I went down the Upper East Side all the way to 59th and cross back to Columbus Circle. So hustling, Fanuel.
Difficult, I'm very intrigued by those moments of creativity, whether you're talking about Shaun's work, right? Looking up at the night sky and just capturing those early moments and realizing he has seen something, to Caitlin, right? When you're zooming in the microscope and you're seeing these connections, and whether it's working or not, to yours, or right now where you're seeing this moment in time, right?
Yeah. What I'd like to give myself a little plug here as far as the actual project that's going on is the project is called Heroes of COVID-19. So if anybody wants to get involved in a creative way, I'm one of those artists that likes to work with artists. I play well. And I'm going to be turning it into a book at some point. Also, I've considered a traveling exhibit, a digital exhibit, et cetera, et cetera. So I feel that the story is, yes, this pandemic has made us realize who this group of people are. But I was celebrating this group of people long before the pandemic. And so it's the underserved glue of our society, the essential workers, that this project is for. And so anybody that has any good ideas or wants to connect with me, you can go to my website at opentochange.com. You can also connect with me on Instagram at Darren.Harley, and I'm happy to follow back and to cheer along, because we have to, at this point, we have to work together. So there's lots of work to be done right now, and so I'm actively running an art lab, which is what Open to Change is turning into, and this project is on all 4 burners right now. So I'm putting it out there.
Fantastic. And with that, I want to thank you all for taking this moment of your time, busy time, to join us and engage and connect. I think for me, it's every time I think about these connections, I'm inspired, and you guys have inspired me today. I hope you guys are all leaving with a piece of connection with each other. And as I mentioned, this project is really earlier on as we continue to think about how do we continue to create a space that we can, all of us can have a conversation, artists can have conversations, and also with the broader public. And that for me is that connection, science, society. I think a lot about that. And each of you are approaching it very differently. And I love that. And I really, really love that. So hopefully we can continue to engage. And so I'm going to stick around for a little bit because I like talking to people. And so please hang around if you want to chat. I understand if you have to go, it's totally fine. Please keep on the lookout for the next iteration of this. We'll try to host something probably sometime in June, end of June maybe. And also what we're trying to do now as well is these individual artist interviews. And so we have one up right now with JennyMae. And so take a look at that and you can learn more about the Dreamland project. So I really would go into the details of what she's doing, like real details. So an hour. And so it's a lot of fun. And so if
formative detail, formative stage, like a little embryo.
Details. And so if you're interested to sort of do that and really dig in there, and I try to find the really hard questions to get to the bolts. I think Darren knows. Actually, there's Darren as well. Darren and JennyMae have gone by my drilling. So
my shaved doppelganger will be there.
And so with that, again, thank you so much, and hopefully we can connect again soon. Great. It's gonna stop the recording.